Sunday morning smelled like peace. Coffee brewing, sunlight slipping through the blinds, and the quiet hum of a day that hadn't turned on me yet. I was rinsing my mug when Ryan's phone started buzzing on the counter. It rattled against the marble, breaking the silence like an impatient knock. No name, just a number. It rang again and again. I told myself to leave it, but something inside me didn't listen. The sound felt different, sharp, nervous. My hand hovered over the phone as if it had its own heartbeat. Ryan was in the shower, water running loud enough to drown the world, but not my thoughts. I don't even remember deciding to pick it up. It just happened. 1 second of hesitation, 1 second too long. "Hello?" I said softly, almost guilty for answering a call that wasn't mine. Silence. Then a voice, trembling, familiar, feminine. "Ryan, promise you'll tell her after the trip?" My blood turned cold. That voice, I knew it. "Who is this?" I managed to ask. A pause, panic, then, "Wait, who's speaking?" The line went dead. My hand was shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. And that's when it hit me. I knew exactly who she was. My chest tightened as I set the phone back down, pretending it hadn't just burned my hand. I stood there, listening to the sound of the shower running, trying to breathe like everything was normal. My mind was racing, replaying that voice. Soft, deliberate, impossible to mistake. Camilla, Ryan's ex. The woman who still lived like a ghost in the corners of our conversations. My heart pounded so loud I could almost hear it echo off the walls. I wanted to scream, to storm into that bathroom and demand the truth right then. But instead, I poured myself another cup of coffee I didn't want. The bitterness filled my mouth, masking the taste of betrayal I already felt forming. Every tick of the kitchen clock stabbed at my nerves. By the time he walked in, towel around his waist and hair dripping, I'd built my mask back up. Calm, steady, unreadable. "Morning, babe," he said, flashing that easy smile that used to melt me. "Everything okay?" I looked up from my cup, forcing my voice to sound casual. "Yeah, someone called you. A woman." He shrugged it off. "Probably work." That word hit me harder than I expected. I nodded, pretending to believe him. But inside, I was already rewriting everything I thought I knew about us. Ryan leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone, completely unaware that I could still hear her voice echoing in my head. He hummed softly, sipping his coffee like it was just another Sunday. I studied his face, the little twitch near his eye when he lied, the way his smile lingered half a second too long. I'd never noticed those things before. Maybe I'd never needed to. Until now. He kissed my forehead, the same casual gesture that once felt like love, and went to grab his gym bag. "Don't wait up," he said. "Might hit the office for a bit." My stomach tightened at how easily the lie slid off his tongue. I murmured something that sounded like, "Okay," though it came out hollow. He left whistling, and that sound, that carelessness, broke something deep inside me. The moment the door clicked shut, I sat down, clutching my mug with both hands. "Promise you'll tell her after the trip." The words replayed like a cruel lullaby. A trip? When? With her? I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. But deep down, I already knew. The truth had slipped through that phone call. I just didn't know yet how far I'd go to make him regret it. That night, he sat beside me on the couch like nothing had happened. The TV flickered across his face, washing him in cold light. I could smell his cologne, the one I'd bought for his birthday, and for a second, I almost wanted to believe the lie he hadn't even told yet. "Hey, babe," he said, wrapping his arm around me. "I have to go on a quick business trip next weekend, just a couple of days in Miami." His voice was calm. Too calm. My heart didn't skip. It stalled. Miami. The word hit like a blade slipping between my ribs. I turned my head slowly, pretending surprise. "Miami? That's sudden." He smiled, easy and unbothered. "Yeah, last-minute thing. Clients need me there. Clients. I almost laughed. I wanted to ask if one of those clients happened to have long brown hair and a nervous voice, but instead, I nodded and let the silence swallow me. He kissed my forehead and turned back to the screen, his focus lost in a sitcom laugh track. I watched him laugh, so naturally it almost convinced me, but something in his eyes was missing, the softness, the warmth. They were colder now, like he was already gone. I tucked myself under his arm and thought, "Go ahead, Ryan. Take your trip." Because by the time he came back, I'd be someone he'd never seen before. When he went to bed, I sat in the dark living room, the blue light of the TV fading into shadows. The house felt too quiet, almost listening. His phone lay on the coffee table, screen dim but still warm from his hand. I stared at it for a long time, my pulse thudding in my ears. Every second I hesitated felt like betrayal, but not mine. Finally, I reached for it, whispering to the empty room, "If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to find." Most of his messages were gone, wiped clean. But one chat remained, a thread from the same number that had called that morning. My stomach twisted as I opened it. The last message glared back at me. "Can't wait for the trip. This time, no secrets." My mouth went dry. My fingers trembled, hovering over the screen, torn between throwing the phone and smashing it against the floor. Instead, I just locked it and set it back down, as if nothing had happened. I sat there for a while, the room spinning slowly around me. I could almost hear her voice again. That soft tone, that reckless confidence. "Promise you'll tell her after the trip." I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. Maybe this was what betrayal looked like. Not a scream, not a fight, just quiet knowledge that the person you love is already lying in someone else's arms. And maybe, just maybe, they have no idea what you're capable of once you find out. I crawled into bed long after midnight, pretending to be asleep when he turned over and wrapped his arm around me. His breath brushed my neck, familiar, steady, and for the first time, it made my skin crawl. I lay still, eyes open, heart racing. Every word he'd said that evening replayed in my mind, rearranging itself into something darker. Business trip. Clients. Just a couple of days. Lies, every one of them. And the worst part? He thought I'd never know. I used to think love meant trust. Now I wasn't so sure. I stared at the shadows on the ceiling, realizing how much of my life I'd built around his promises. He was the kind of man who could make you feel safe while he slowly pulled the rug from under your feet. Charming. Polite. Careful. But that mask was slipping, and I was finally paying attention. By morning, I was done pretending. I smiled when he kissed me goodbye, even packed him breakfast for the road, because that's what he expected. He left with a quick wave, thinking he still had me wrapped around his finger. But as the door shut behind him, I made a silent vow. He wanted no secrets. He'd get them, just not the ones he was expecting. The morning he left, the sky was heavy with clouds, the kind that looked like they were holding secrets too. I watched from the doorway as Ryan loaded his suitcase into the car, humming some careless tune. "Call me when you land," I said, forcing a small smile. "Of course," he replied, leaning in to kiss me. His lips were warm, his eyes steady. He was an excellent actor. I'll give him that. He drove off, waving once before disappearing down the street. That was the last honest moment we'd ever share. The moment his car turned the corner, I felt my mask drop. My breath came out sharp, like I'd been holding it for days. I went straight to the kitchen table where my phone was waiting, his number already memorized. I called my cousin Leo, the only person I trusted to help without asking too many questions. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice low. "I need you to trace a number for me." He paused. "You sound tense. What's going on?" I hesitated. "It's his ex." There was a stretch of silence before Leo sighed. "Give me 10 minutes. I hung up and stood by the window, staring at the coffee cup still sitting where he'd left it. 10 minutes felt like hours. When my phone finally rang again, my heart skipped. She's staying at the Ocean Palm Resort, Leo said, his voice firm. In Miami. I smiled, small, cold, certain. Perfect, I whispered. Because if Ryan wanted a weekend away, he was about to get one he'd never forget. I booked my flight within the hour, one way, under a name I hadn't used since college. My hands barely trembled as I typed, which scared me more than anything. I wasn't crying, I wasn't panicking. I was calm, too calm. Maybe that's what happens when the truth finally stops being a question. I told myself this wasn't about revenge. It was about answers. But deep down, I already knew those were the same thing. Packing was easy. I didn't take much. Just a small bag, a pair of sunglasses, and a notebook where I'd started writing the things I'd never had the courage to say out loud. I looked around the bedroom one last time, taking in the bed we used to share, the framed photos smiling back like ghosts. You chose this, I whispered to the empty room, and for the first time, I believed it. At the airport, I felt invisible, just another face among travelers chasing love, running from it, or pretending it still existed. As the plane took off, I watched the city shrink beneath me, my chest rising with something strange. It wasn't fear. It was freedom, quiet, electric, dangerous. Ryan thought I'd be home waiting for his call. Instead, I was heading straight into the truth, and I wasn't sure who I'd be when I found it. By the time I landed in Miami, the air was thick with salt and heat, the kind that clings to your skin like a secret. I took a cab straight to the Ocean Palm Resort, watching palm trees blur past the window while my heart beat steady, almost unnaturally so. When the driver asked if I was here for vacation, I smiled. Something like that, I said. My voice sounded calm, but inside, I was already rehearsing the moment I'd see him with her. At the front desk, I signed in under my alias, quiet, polite, unnoticeable. The receptionist slid me a keycard with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Enjoy your stay. I thanked her, slipping it into my pocket like a weapon. My room overlooked the pool, the perfect vantage point. From the balcony, I could already hear laughter, glasses clinking, the low hum of music, the kind of joy people feel when they think no one's watching. I unpacked slowly, setting everything in its place as if control could keep me sane. Then I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, and stared at the screen until my reflection stared back. You wanted no secrets, Ryan, I whispered. So let's make sure of that. I took a deep breath and stood, the weight of my plans settling over me. Whatever I found tonight, there'd be no turning back, for either of us. Evening came dressed in gold and gilt. The air outside smelled like coconut oil and chlorine, but beneath it, I could taste the bitterness of what I was about to do. I walked through the hotel lobby, my heels clicking softly against the tile. The sound felt too loud, too confident, but maybe that was the point. My pulse quickened as I stepped into the open courtyard. The pool shimmered under the lights, reflecting laughter, lies, and the illusion of paradise. And then I saw him, Ryan, sitting by the water, laughing like a man with nothing to hide. His arm brushed against hers, Camilla, her hair catching the light exactly the way I remembered. They looked comfortable, familiar, intimate. My chest tightened, but not from heartbreak this time, from clarity, the kind that burns slow and cold, like fire disguised as calm. Every smile they shared was another nail sealing the coffin of who I used to be. I moved to the bar, nodding to the bartender. See that man in the white shirt? I asked, keeping my tone steady. Send a bottle of your best champagne to his table, with this note. I slipped the folded paper across the counter, the ink still fresh. You don't have to tell me after the trip, I already know. The bartender hesitated, eyes flicking to me, but I smiled. It's just a surprise, I said. And, oh, it was. From my seat at the far end of the bar, I watched the waiter carry the bottle across the pool deck. Time slowed, every step echoing like a countdown. Ryan looked up as the champagne arrived, confusion flickering across his face. Camilla leaned in, whispering something, and he laughed at first, trying to play it cool. Then he unfolded the note. I saw it in his eyes. That moment the words landed, sharp and undeniable. The laughter vanished. The mask cracked. He froze, his hand gripping the paper so tightly it trembled. Camilla's smile faltered. She said something. I couldn't hear it, but I didn't need to. I knew panic when I saw it. His eyes darted around the pool, scanning every face, searching for me. I took a sip of my drink, the cold burn of it grounding me. From here, he looked small, desperate, cornered. Exactly how I'd felt when I heard her voice on his phone. The music swelled around us, oblivious to the war breaking quietly between two people who once shared a bed. I stood, leaving a few bills on the counter, and slipped out through the side exit. Behind me, I heard a chair scrape, his voice calling her name, maybe mine. But by the time he turned, I was gone. Just a shadow dissolving into the Miami night, carrying the calm of a woman who'd stopped waiting to be told the truth. Outside, the night air wrapped around me like silk, warm, heavy, humming with energy. I could still feel the adrenaline pulsing through my veins, sharp and alive. Somewhere behind those walls, Ryan was unraveling, piecing together how it all slipped from his control. For years, he'd been the one holding the cards, confident I'd never see the game for what it was. But now, the board was mine, and I didn't even have to raise my voice. I walked along the boardwalk behind the resort, the sound of waves colliding with the shore syncing with my heartbeat. My heels clicked in rhythm, steady, certain. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was something quieter, stronger, like glass after it hardens from fire. That's what betrayal does. It burns you hollow, then leaves you shining. I stopped to watch the ocean, endless, indifferent, free. Somewhere out there, tomorrow was waiting, but tonight still belonged to me. I took one last look at the resort, at the laughter still echoing faintly across the water. Goodbye, Ryan, I whispered, not out of grief, but relief. Then I turned away, letting the wind carry the last trace of him into the dark. The next chapter of my life had already started. He just didn't know it yet. When I got back home, the silence was waiting for me, heavy, honest, and strangely comforting. I stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, staring at the space that once felt warm. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. The kitchen still smelled faintly of his cologne. The coffee mug he used still sat by the sink. It was eerie, how ordinary things can haunt you when the person behind them isn't real anymore. But I wasn't the same woman who'd left this house. I'd walked through fire and come out clean. Over the next few days, I moved like clockwork. I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't call him. I just planned. I gathered every photo, every receipt, every piece of proof I'd need. It was strange. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's silent, methodical. I spoke to my lawyer, changed the locks, and packed his things neatly into boxes on the porch. Every folded shirt, every pair of shoes was a small victory, a reminder that closure can look beautiful when it's organized. When he finally pulled into the driveway, his car light swept across the boxes like a spotlight on his own downfall. I watched from the window as confusion gave way to panic. He knocked, called my name, begged. Elena, please open the door. I waited until his voice cracked before I turned the handle. You don't have to explain, I said quietly, meeting his eyes. Camilla already did. His face drained of color like he'd just seen a ghost. Maybe he had. Elena, please, he stammered. It meant nothing. That word again. Nothing. I almost laughed. Then you can have nothing, I said softly, stepping aside so he could see the packed boxes behind me. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The man who used to command every room now stood speechless in front of his own ruin. I handed him an envelope. Crisp, final, heavy with truth. Divorce papers, I said, and a little souvenir from Miami. He opened it with trembling hands, and when the photos slipped out, the ones from the hotel security camera, his breath hitched. Elena, where did you get these? he whispered. Let's just say your business trip had great lighting, I replied. He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Don't, I warned. You told her you'd tell me after the trip. Consider this your moment. For the first time, he looked small. And I realized, power isn't about who yells the loudest. It's about who can stay silent and still win. I made a mistake, he said finally, his voice cracking. Please, don't do this. I smiled, not cruelly, but clearly. Oh, I'm not doing anything, Ryan. You did this all by yourself. I opened the door wider, letting the cold air slip between us. Goodbye, I said simply. And when it closed, it sounded like peace. Solid, irreversible, final. For once, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. After he left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, listening to the sound of his car fade into the night. The boxes were gone, the house was quiet, and for the first time in years, the air felt breathable. I leaned against the frame, letting the stillness wash over me. No more lies vibrating on countertops, no more anxious smiles pretending everything was fine. Just silence, the kind that doesn't hurt anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel the urge to. It was over, and that was enough. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt the pieces of my life one quiet day at a time. I went back to my routines, coffee in the morning, long walks at sunset, but everything felt different now. The world looked sharper, truer, like I was finally seeing it without someone else's filter. Friends asked if I was okay. I told them I'd never been better, and for once, I wasn't lying. Freedom has a sound, and it's the echo of a door locking behind a man who thought he'd never be shut out. Sometimes at night, I'd catch myself remembering his laugh or the way he used to look at me before everything soured. But even those memories started to fade, replaced by something steadier. Self-respect. The kind that grows quietly, like light through a crack. Revenge wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. And I could feel it. The start of a life that finally belonged to me. 6 months later, I sat at a small cafe by the beach, the kind where the smell of coffee blends with sea salt and the sound of waves fills every pause. I came here often now, not to escape, but to be. The mornings felt lighter, my thoughts clearer. Sometimes I caught myself smiling for no reason, just grateful for the quiet rhythm of my own company. The woman who used to measure her worth by someone else's attention had finally disappeared. In her place stood someone whole and free. Carla, my oldest friend, arrived with her usual grin and 2 cappuccinos in hand. You seem lighter, she said, setting one in front of me. Happier. I laughed, tracing the rim of my cup with my finger. Turns out, I said, the best promise I ever kept was to myself. She raised her glass to that, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was pretending to be okay. I actually was. Then my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I already knew who it was before I looked. I'm sorry, I miss you. For a moment, I just stared at it, not angry, not nostalgic, just done. My thumbs hovered for a second before I typed back, You promised to tell me after the trip. You finally did. I hit send, deleted the number, and smiled. The tide rolled in as I stood, sunlight warming my skin. I walked toward the water, free, calm, untouchable.